Hello and welcome to episode 59 of Knobcat Games Dungeons of the Obelisk podcast. I'm your host, Joe Sleppy. I'm Executive Prime at Knobcat Games, and this show is our audio devlog where we get together every 2 weeks and we talk about our game, Dungeons of the Obelisk, a 2D turn-based dungeon crawling loot grinding adventure. And I'm joined today by our digital alchemist, TJ Yedicernia.
Hello.
And just a couple days ago, we hit 1 month of Dodo being officially released. I feel like that was a good milestone. It feels like we've finally done it.
Yeah, it's nice to, I guess, have the game be out there for a pretty good amount of time now.
Yeah, people have really been getting active in the Discord. There's been a lot of people in there asking questions and playing and stuff, so that's been really cool. Sometimes it's a bit stressful. People like to really get in depth on some of the questions.
Yeah, I pop into it every now and again. I see them talk about like various strategies and other ways to go throughout the game.
Yeah, my favorite is the discussion of whether you want to have experience gain or item find on your loot.
I mean, if you ask me, in the long run, XP gain always makes the biggest difference. Because if I'm stronger, I can do more faster. And if I can do more faster, I can get more loot quicker.
Yeah, the alternative is that drop rate is pretty small, so if you want to make gains, maybe you're higher level if you play for a certain amount of time with more experience, but the way our loot system works, you get a lot more chances at seeing loot over a lot of time too. So it's a fun discussion to have, I think, but I don't think there's a straight answer to it. I think I'm technically in the XP as well.
The end result is that move speed is going to be the one. Sneaks in.
Move speed secretly broken.
Yeah, something tells me that might not be the case.
I mean, if you want to get on the leaderboard for those clear times,
yeah, you are going to need more move speed. You'll need a degree of luck too, because if a dungeon never finishes until you open up all the chests and beat all the enemies, you just gotta hope that you have like the least amount of both, just to barrel through it all, speedrunning.
Yeah, the amount of enemies doesn't change, right? Or the amount of groups of enemies.
I'm not sure. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure it's a set on like 8, right?
I think we made a preset. Talking about like the amount of total enemy groups in a entire dungeon.
Right, yeah. I think there's 7 groups and then you fight the boss group.
Yeah. I want to say we have it preset. Maybe it's slightly random where it's like, oh, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 8, but I don't think we did that. Yeah,
I don't think so either. It's funny, like stuff that you've programmed 2 years ago. It's hard to remember, but I'm under the impression that the amount of groups is set, but the group size can change, and it obviously gets more as you go through the dungeons. And then on level 10, it's like, I was just looking at it, it's 6 to 8 mobs per group. So
you're guaranteed to be fighting a crowd every time.
Yeah, that was part of the plan of it, was to always feel like you were punching up. In Diablo, you're like one person running around and you'll fight like, you'll have 100 mobs on the screen sometimes, but in our game that's not quite possible. So I wanted it to feel like you were fighting a group though. You were one guy and punching up on a lot of mobs.
Yeah, it's always that, I guess, upward scaling of the game, because you don't want a player to go through and feel like they are just as strong as they began. Because if in level 1 you fought 8 enemies, and then in level 10 you fight 8 enemies, you wouldn't feel much stronger, because you've been fighting the same amount every single time.
Yeah, I think our scaling 1 through 10 is pretty good. If we ever get to add the next 10 levels, I'm sort of curious how that will feel, because I don't think on level 11 you want to drop back to fighting one trash mob.
You could always do something like waves, where like one cluster of enemies, instead of being up to 8 enemies, it's now up to 8 enemies and up to 2 waves. So you would have to fight a total of 16.
Oh yeah, you could do. Yeah, we'll have to think about that one. That's a good idea for like down the road.
Yeah, it would help the player feel like they continue to get stronger, or maybe the concept like dungeons become more dangerous as you progress because there's more enemies that you have to fight.
Yeah, we could always step up the amount of groups too. I mean, we're talking about like future dev stuff that isn't even like on the table yet. That does bring me to a point, I guess, that I wanted to make. I had asked before the show if there was any questions specifically for the podcast, and we only got one, and it was, when is new content coming? And the short answer, I guess, is like soon, with the trademark symbol next to it. But it's hard to, I don't know, this is like a discussion we always have, and I want to try to like clear it up, but it's hard to explain like how much we've learned trying to develop this game. You know, we're still a small team, and everything that we add to the game costs, you know, not just money, but like time and hours and work and stuff. You know, if we wanted to add one item to the game, you know, it's going to take Ben 4 or 5 hours to draw it. It's going to take Nika 4 or 5 hours to animate it. And it's going to take you, I think you could probably put one item into the game pretty quick, maybe an hour or something.
Yeah, a one item basis, depending on the item, can be pretty quick.
But if I come up with some weird legendary power for it, then you could spend 4 hours programming that, potentially. So
always depends on how unique an item ends up being.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too in a minute, but I guess back to the when is a certain thing coming. Right now, we've been working on a new game mode, which I think we can talk about pretty openly. I feel like we're fairly close to it, you know, maybe hopefully within 2 months or something like that. I don't know if that's too much of a promise or not, but it's hard to say. But yeah, we're working on a game mode called Challenges, which is a precursor to a game mode that I'm calling Invasions. So the idea of Challenges was to make a game mode that set us up for future game modes, but also used very few new assets. So that way, like, we didn't have to have Ben and Nika like drawing and animating a bunch of new like mobs or something, for example. So in the challenge, you're gonna fight one mob that's pre-existing, and I think the first challenge is definitely gonna be the glubs. So we're gonna fight waves of glubs at potentially infinite difficulty levels. so you pick which level you want the glubs to be from your unlocked options, I guess, and then you keep climbing up the ladder, fighting tougher and tougher groups of glubs. And it's going to be interesting to see how tough of a glub it takes to actually take down a player.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this game mode plays out, especially with players who have been leveling up so far, because, you know, a glub's definitely it is the weakest enemy. And if you're fighting them at level 10, you're guaranteed you're just going to kind of roll right through them. But how much further can a player go before they actually start to become too powerful?
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a point, even if it's like 2,000 or something, like there's going to be a point where the glub is just so beefy and like just does enough damage that it's hurting you, I would think. Maybe it's just going to be an infinite climb. Maybe people can do 5,000 level glubs, but it's hard to say. I have a feeling Hasea is going to be like really crushing the glubs, but
just steamrolling them.
Yeah, so that's what we're working on right now. That's kind of our main focus, other than just fixing bugs. And we keep finding bugs, so we keep having to take time off from working on challenges to get bugs sorted out, which I guess is something that's just always going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting pretty good with clearing out bugs as they roll in, depending on what the bug actually is. Along with some quality of life features. Like, one of the bigger updates that had happened this week was changes to the shop, so that the shop is not only more clear about what you can get, but also much easier to use. Like, originally the curios were limited. You wouldn't be able to get all of them if you wanted to. Certain ones had to be on like a timed cooldown before they would pop back in.
Which I don't know that we ever even set up, right? We kind of ended up with Thirsty in there for a long time. He never really started the rotation with Mr. Donut.
Yeah, the idea was that it was going to be in a rotation that was a bit more manual instead of like a daily cycle. But then once we decided on like, hey, let's just have them all available, I decided, nah, I'm not even going to bother to change it. I'll just wait till the new shop update rolls in.
Yeah, for sure.
A good timing on that, somebody mentioned being able to buy the consumables for more than one at a time, because buying one at a time, going through the pages, and then buying another one just took a very long time.
Yeah, I didn't think about people like needing to buy, I guess like I usually buy like 10 at a time. I didn't think about people buying like millions.
And it's like you never know how much players are going to end up getting until they start playtesting it, because I'm not one for consumables personally. I have a tendency to ignore them. So it's one of those things where like in the shop I personally would never get them just because I don't care for consumables no matter how useful they are.
I'd say in our game you kind of need to use them. I think at least the ones that you can buy for gold, they're pretty much like a daily thing. Like I recommend buying them and upgrading them to the weird contraption and using those.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense too, especially like when there's the sale with the items. You can just go in, if you have the gold, buy a bundle of 50 and then just do that over the course of 4 days and you can get 50 contraptions for a much lower price than you normally would.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the idea of it. We'll have to circle back around to my when are things coming question, but another question that we get a lot is like, I have all these resources and I can't spend them. And I get it. Like, you have that pile of gold. I want to tell people to just like hold on to it because more stuff is coming. You know, as we can continue to develop the game, I'm going to add things that cost lots of gold, but like they're not in the game yet. So it's kind of like just hang on to it. I got plans for gray dust and gold and stuff, but we have to get there, you know, and that's going to take a little bit of time, I think. You know, I realize it's kind of feels pointless to have, you know, 100 million gold and not have anything to spend it on. But I think when new stuff comes out and you have 100 million, you're going to be happy that you have it to spend.
It does bring up one of the other question points that people have, and that's building up too many items and forcing them to go back to town to scrap it, which I was kind of thinking about because it's a reasonable complaint. Like, I understand people don't want to go back to town after like 3 dungeons. I feel like probably with the challenges might be a good idea to have a feature, like maybe a toggle or something that just auto scraps certain rarities so that players can keep burning through things instead of having to be forced back to town constantly.
Yeah, I mean, the plan is to have the challenge mode just automatically give all of the lower level stuff, right? So you're still gonna have to go back to scrap your legendaries or something, but at least you won't have to worry about, you know, trash, uncommon, and rares anymore.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking might be nice to push that further into adding it towards dungeons and breaches as a toggle. That way, like, you can turn it on and off, because later down the line you probably would want the gear. As more gear gets added in, more levels get added in. But if you're already maxed out then and you're running breaches for legendary or set items, you don't want any of the trash, uncommon, or rares. You just want to toss them in the trash immediately.
Yeah, see, that's kind of why I don't want to just eliminate them in dungeons, is because when we do eventually add, you know, up to dungeon 20 would be the next tier, you know, a level 20 rare item is going to be more valuable than a level 10 legendary, probably, depending on, you know, at least based on major traits. But the other thing is, when the new dungeons come out, we're going to have a whole new tier of trash and uncommon items that you can use as cosmetics as well. So having a toggle is possibly a good idea, but I feel like just having them, I don't know. I guess it depends how much of a problem it is, because I've never really had a problem with having to go back to town, but I try to keep my inventory like clean. Like, if I get a junk legendary, I just scrap it, you know, and I think I've, you know, during testing I had like maybe 50 legendaries that I was hanging on to. And I still didn't feel like I had to go back to town that often, because the trash and uncommon items stack. So once you get one of them, you know, you can get 100,000 more and they don't take up any more inventory space. So it's really just the rares actually that take up space.
Yeah, which, that might come back into the discussion of item rarity or item find. Because if you have really high item find because of your armor, you're finding more rares, which means that you're building up your inventory even more.
Yeah, they take up more space, yeah. So this does circle back around good too. When is X thing coming? When is a certain thing coming? Well, the main things that people have been asking for are a storage in town, like a chest in town. I'd call it a stash. They're also asking for the arsenal, which is the multiple loadouts, and they were asking for more inventory space. And I think those are all things that we can work on eventually, but I think they're all going to have a cost to them. You can't just store infinite items in your inventory because it's going to take up space in our servers and stuff. So that's kind of why we set it where it was. We thought it was pretty fair amount for most people to grind reasonably hard. But I could see where maybe we could increase the inventory space for like a certain amount of crystals or money or whatever it is, because then it would kind of offset the cost of having that or whatever. That's something we're going to have to talk about off mic, I guess, and figure out for real. But the idea is we want challenges to come out, and I think challenges will fix some of the problems with how we're setting those up. And then after that, I want to do a survey and ask people, like, what is the next feature you want the most? Is it the stash? Is it the arsenal? Is it inventory space? Is it some other thing, PvP, whatever people want. That's what we want to focus on next, within reason. People keep asking about guilds as well. And I feel like guilds is a ways off because there's so many things that need to be in place first before like a guild makes sense, because you have to have stuff to do in the guild or it doesn't make sense to like have a guild. So we want to have like reasons to be in a guild, and then plus like Ben will have to draw like the guild hall and stuff. The guild hall is in town right now, but like you'll be able to go inside of it and hang out with with all your friends in your guild. So we'd have to have like art for all of that and things to grind for as a guild and stuff. So that'll take a lot of time. I think it's going to be a difficult one. But a lot of the quality of life things that people want, like the stash, I think will hopefully come fairly soon if we can keep developing.
Yeah, there is one thing that I do want to mention about, I guess, like a stash or an inventory, because it's not uncommon for people to play games and people to say like, oh yeah, I want bigger inventory. Why can't I just have a bigger inventory? It's just it's just a whole bunch of little pictures. One thing I had learned from playing other games along with making this one is that it's never as simple as increasing the inventory size.
Right.
Because one thing about inventory is that every item is more than just a little icon, it's more than a little picture. Every item has like a massive pile of stats inside of it. So unless the inventory page is changed where it can have different pages of inventory to reduce the total amount you see at one time, the game will quite literally slow down and eventually crash if the inventory size goes too high. It's one of those things where like if we did boost the inventory, it would have to be like a change in system where you can only see, let's say, 50 per page, and then the player gets more pages of inventory.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times players have noticed this. I've seen it a few times where once your inventory builds up to, once you hit around 200 or higher, then that's when you start to notice that your game will slow down when you open up your inventory. And it's purely because there's just so many items that the game has to slow down. It can't process all of them at the same time.
Yeah. That's why I think the stash and the arsenal are kind of more of a priority first, I think. I think having the stash in town would fix a lot of people's problems because they'd be able to store all those legendaries in town and then not look at them very often.
Yeah, a stash makes a huge difference because instead of having the items all listed, you can now split them so that some of the items are in your inventory while the other ones are in the stash. And since they're separated like that and you don't see them both at the same time, the game's able to handle it without breaking itself.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out how it would I mean, every one of these things, like you think like, oh, just add a stash to the game. That's so easy. Like it's just a chest in town. And like, it would probably be easier to literally build a real chest in real life and set it somewhere than it would be to like put this into the game, because like your chest in town, well, think about it. Now you have to open up an inventory that shows you your inventory, I guess, and the chest inventory. And then you move things, or do you move things from your inventory into the chest, like without looking at the chest, and then you go look at the chest and click to move things back to your inventory? Like there's a lot of like logistics of how it should actually work and how the UI should work. And we'll have to have Ben draw a chest, you know, like I'm trying to just think like off the top of my head, like how it would even actually work with our current system.
Yeah, there's a variety of considerations and a whole bunch of other things that we have to do just to get it to function properly. Because, you know, like you mentioned, is it just like a panel that you see your whole inventory and you see the chest loot at the same time? Because if that's the case, you're gonna break your game.
Yeah, it's gonna slow down, like you just said.
There's definitely a lot to consider with a stash. As convenient as the feature is to have in game, it's never as simple as just put a box and have it hold items.
Yeah, for sure. Same with like the arsenal. I've been trying to think of how to do it as easy as possible, and it's still going to require like changing UI and changing like, you know, how your inventory works and stuff. So it all takes a lot more than you would think, because like the challenges is a good example as well, because people were like, oh, I just add an infinite game mode, that would be so easy. Well, okay, well now we're like, what's infinite about it? Are the levels infinite? Do you gain infinite experience? That would break the game. Do you gain infinite items? You know, like do the items still drop? You know, you didn't want to drop you don't want to collect your items in the dungeon. Do you still collect them in the challenge? What's going to be in the challenge? Like, is there going to be, you know, a new boss or an old boss? What are you grinding the challenges for? Because if you're just grinding infinite challenges, sure, you can be trying to get on the leaderboard, but you have to have items as well. Like it makes sense to have a set in there. You know, maybe something like really rare to grind for. You know, it ends up being every little thing ends up being so much work that it's hard to like explain how much work it is.
Yeah. Most certainly. When it comes to those challenge things, like in concept, infinite game mode's incredibly simple. I can say at the very least, there is a lot of progress done on it so far. I guess we got like the baseline system of it going, which from there will make the full implementation and then the future of it a lot easier. Because if you do something rough and you do it quick, then it'll work, but trying to expand further will just be a miserable process. So I'm trying to make sure that when we have challenges in, if for example we wanted to bring the amount of challenges from one type to 10, it'd be exponentially quicker than if I just brute force the whole process of making the whole thing.
Right, because the thing with challenges, we want to start with like the glub challenge, but then we want to add like basically a challenge for every other mob as well. You know, those will be down the road, but that's the groundwork that we want to set for it, you know, so that it's a stepping stone for more stuff and not, you know, something that's going to break later down the road.
And it's always good to design things in a way where changing it or expanding upon it later is easier than the initial process to make it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. The only other thing on our list that we haven't talked about, and I'm looking at our recording time, so we might as well jump to this. The next companion should be coming out on the 9th. That's the plan. But I feel like I maybe forgot to tell you to start on them like sooner. so hopefully their ability isn't too tough to get programmed in.
On the 9th, that actually didn't. That's not too far away.
Yeah, it's every 2 weeks is like really quick actually, and we should have made use of the time. Like the Pendant of Void pretty easy to add in because it's just some dodge chance. So we should have been like ahead working on Trinity. But that's my bad. I really forgot to like mention it to you. But the new companion is going to be named Trinity, and it's really cool. Like it's based on like some chimes or something. It's kind of it almost looks like it should be an artifact, but you know, me and Ben I kind of came up with this idea and told Ben to make it and go with whatever, and he kind of made it look like 3 little like characters, I guess, that are gonna fly around behind you. So it should be pretty cool. And then the thing that most people are going to be interested in is what is its actual power. This is going to be the, hopefully, and stop me if this is going to be hard to program, but it's going to be the stereotypical pet that reses you when you die or prevents you from dying.
Death Defiance.
Yeah, that it's usually in like most games. Like most games have that kind of like ability, and it's usually not even really that good. So I was curious about it, but hopefully it's something that we can get into the game. Otherwise we might have to like pause on Trinity and maybe pivot to something else.
I like the idea of Death Defiance. Depending on the game, I've seen how strong or weak it can be. Like,
yeah.
In the Souls series, Demon Souls has a Death Defiance where you activate it. If you die, you heal for half your health. Incredibly overpowered for that reason. But then later down in the Souls series, they added another one where it does the same thing, but leaves you at 1 health.
Oh, yeah.
Which was just so much worse, because now, if you get hit one more time after that, you're just dead. If the enemy hits you rapidly, you just die instantly, which I guess we would have to fully decide on how this one works. I'd imagine it's probably going to be the 1 health style, just because that's the most balanced way to implement it. Or maybe 10%, I don't know.
So my thought was there's going to be a % chance for it to trigger. It's not going to trigger 100% of the time. So that way you're not just like preventing the first death. You have a chance to like chain it if you want. But it would be more like if an attack would kill you, then heal X health. And then you have a % chance for that to trigger. So if it's, you know, say 30% chance for it to trigger, then, you know, 1 out of 3 times it's gonna save you, and then you have the potential to like chain it if you get lucky. I feel like that would be easier than it actually like rezzing you after you die.
You're not wrong, actually would be. That leans more towards a balanced style of it, because with only a chance of activation, you're not guaranteed to survive the hit, which makes it a lot more balanced in gameplay, because I guess you could do it where like it activates once per fight, and that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Or if it's a chance, then it's not only incredibly powerful, but it's more reliable, depending on how you look at it. Because
yeah, depending on what the chance is, you know, we'll have to find the balance point for that, I think. But yeah, I was kind of thinking like if an attack would kill you, you heal that amount of damage as health or something like that, whatever % of the time.
Opens up a opportunity to just ignore health at a much riskier style of play.
Yeah, you can glass cannon it.
It's like every now and again you happen to beat the boss just because you tanked the hit and revived. Then every now and again you just get hit once and you just die.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure out exactly the exact specifics of Trinity off air, I think, but hopefully they're coming on the 9th. That's a week away from our recording date. We'll see what happens. I think I'm ready to wrap this up unless you have anything else.
Should be all set.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you so much for listening to the end of this podcast. We really appreciate your interest in our game. If you're not in our Discord, the link is in game on the help menu, so you can join us, ask us questions there, and get updates, like hopefully maybe the artwork for Trinity before they're in game. You can also go to knobcat.com for more info. I should probably start posting my blogs there again. I totally forgot about that. Maybe I'll blog something this weekend. knobcat.com if you want to see that. We also have our social media, which is Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, which are all at Dungeons Obelisk. And if you're listening to this and you want to help our game, leave a Steam review or a podcast review, or both, because those all help us a ton. It helps new people find the show, find the game. I'm also on Twitch streaming every once in a while. You can follow me and get notified when I go live. That's twitch.tv/StarRambler. And I think that's everything. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
See ya.